Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. So what's it like to build an operation in Kiev from 4 to 100 people? We're about to find out about that and a whole lot more with our special guest here, Paul Jaroslawski, president of FreightCaviar. Paul, welcome to Hot Seat.
Thanks, Spencer, for having me.
Did I get that title correct, Paul?
Yeah, that was pretty good. Well, my name was good. President of FreightCaviar and now the co-founder of ShipperCRM.com. So that's a new addition.
And we're going to unpack that here in just a moment, sir. I'm very excited about that. So why don't we just take 30 seconds, tell us about the work that you're doing at FreightCaviar, and then we'll get to the ShipperCRM here in just a little bit later in the episode.
Sure. So FreightCaviar, I would call it essentially the morning brew, but for freight. I know a lot of listeners or people around or know more or less what morning brew is. I started off differently. I started off with memes, freight memes in the industry, and then I kind of progressed to having a podcast and a newsletter. It's essentially for freight brokers, but dispatchers like it, trucking companies like it, and a lot of freight brokerages either listen to the podcast or read the newsletter along with consuming the memes. The memes are great for lead generation. And then I create content on top of that. But overall, I would say it's like a freight media source for the millennials of the industry.
I like that. All right. So let's jump right in there with the millennials. What about the millennials? What about the content is so appealing specifically to the millennials?
The millennials are a little bit more edgy, whereas the older generation was a lot more professional, and then I believe that with the millennials, people are just more kind of easygoing, laid back. They don't mind a controversial meme or something that's a little bit less professional, and I think that edginess resonates with them. So for some reason, it's definitely, since I am a millennial, I could speak to those people and. But that's not to say that older generations don't like our content either. They might just sometimes be kind of put off by it a little bit. But that's I guess the difference, though, the main difference.
Well, it takes all kinds, Paul, and certainly some people like it because you developed quite a following there. So just tell us about that. It's a couple years in the making. Is that correct? Yeah. Maybe. And so where did you start? And from a follower standpoint, where are you at today?
You know, it's funny. If I was looking yesterday at a screenshot of my Instagram page when I started off like 2.5 years ago, and it's so laughable and it's so embarrassing that I'm like, I don't even know if I could actually like share this to anyone. So if you're out there, just know that the beginnings usually aren't pretty, and you're most likely going to laugh at them when you look down the line. But that's the only way to grow. And you have to put yourself out there in some shape, way, or form, whether it's a small company that you're trying to build out, or if it's like doing essentially anything on the internet. Your first video, your first podcast, your first newsletter, your first meme, they're most likely going to be pretty bad. And what I've learned is that overall, well, you learn through the journey and the experience. You see what works, what doesn't. You kind of realize that, like, you need to be patient. You need to be consistent, and you got to show up every day. So for me, in the beginning, I honestly, if you were to look at my first memes or my first postings, they were just kind of like stupid. But some people liked it and they shared it with their friends. And I started off with 0 followers on every network. So I had 0 followers on Instagram. Right now, I'm almost at 30,000, and this is all for like logistics people in the freight industry in the US. And then in LinkedIn, same, I started off with 0, now almost at 20,000. Email newsletters almost at 5,000. So slowly but surely, but everything took time. And if I were to take any lessons from it, it's just you have to show up, but you also have to do stuff that makes you uncomfortable, especially in the beginning with the content. But you're going to grow from it and be consistent, patient, and after a while, you'll see the results.
So I'm curious. So do you remember, maybe there was a meme or some element of content that caught fire that you're like, oh, wow, maybe I've got something here. Was there something like that took place? And if so, what was it?
On LinkedIn, definitely. On Instagram, it was more, I guess, like consistent progress in terms of like the the likes, the view count, stuff like that. But on LinkedIn, I think I had like a couple hundred followers. This was back in February last year, maybe January. I had one meme that I just like, I think it got like 6,000 reactions or 7,000 reactions on LinkedIn. It really like took off. It was, I'm not sure if Spencer, if you're knowledgeable on memes, like, do you look at memes, or I can describe it, but
how old do you think I am, Paul? Like,
well, I don't know. I'm not sure. Some people don't look at memes, or they don't actually pay attention to them. But there's a meme where it's like it says the caption, when you ask the carrier if the load delivered, and then there's a sword that's coming out, and the beginning of the sword is just came out, and it says yes. And then you see the full sword in the second picture, and it says, yesterday the truck broke down. So that meme blew up. Like it did really good on LinkedIn, and I got a couple thousand followers on LinkedIn just because of that meme.
Wow, that's amazing. I love stories like that, and I love how you kind of frame it, that you have to start somewhere. And I think that's true no matter what you're doing in logistics. You have to start somewhere, and so I love how you kind of think about that. So let me pivot back to our teaser coming out of the intro. Now, part of your story, wasn't always being creative with memes. At one point, you were all-star planted over in Kiev to go develop an operation for Everest Transportation Systems, and built that from 4 to 100 employees. Huge advantage. That even just recently, Ben Gordon, Cambridge Capital, cited as that whole operation was a major differentiator that influenced their purchase of the business. And so I'm just curious, you're the only American in that operation. Tell us about that experience. I mean, to me, that's fascinating.
Sure. So I was 24 at that time, and the owners were like, Paul, like, would you move to Kiev to open up an office for us to run it? And I was single. I was 24, and my grandparents lived in Poland. I spent all my summers in Poland, so I was familiar with the region. Never been to Ukraine before, but I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, I was super psyched for it. I couldn't wait to move to Ukraine. So it's kind of funny if you were to ask, anyone, any American living in America, if they want to move to Ukraine, typically they would probably say no, especially now. But even this was back in 2017, and so I moved in November of 2017, and I settled in. It was kind of interesting. So it was the first time I moved outside of my parents' home, and I kind of lived like my parents lived paycheck to paycheck, kind of like a humble beginning. My parents, I was a first generation Polish American, so it was never like I never had like anything fancy in life. Everything was just kind of like life was good. I mean, I was thankful for being born in America, but nothing more than that. And I moved to Kiev, and they put me up in this apartment, and it was the most spectacular apartment I could think of. And the company paid for it, but the monthly fee for it was like $800 a month. But it was the most amazing apartment. It was big. It was luxurious. Everything was in there. So I literally went from like living with my parents to like having this like 2-bedroom, like really fully furnished, like all the furnish or the furniture was of the highest quality. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. And now, the restaurants, they had really good restaurants, and all the restaurants were really, really cheap. So I ended up just changing my lifestyle within a day. Just from moving from Chicago to Kiev, my lifestyle completely changed. And then building up the company, it was fun. I was having a great time. It was exciting for me because not only was my lifestyle got upgraded, but I was also managing a team. So there was a lot of self-development going on, and we were bringing on a lot of employees at Everest rapidly because, as we know, the cost to hire and pay an employee in Kiev was probably 1/5, 1/6 of whatever you would pay in Chicago or in the U.S. And it was quite amazing. I mean, I was 24, and I was running this office branch in Kiev. So I had a lot of career development. I learned a lot. I was reading a lot of books. So we would work from 3 p.m. to midnight Kiev time, which was 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Chicago time, an 8-hour time difference. So I would wake up, and I would have plenty of time to either go to the gym, read a book, kind of like listen to a podcast. So it was a great time for me. I learned a lot, and we ended up scaling that to 100 people within 3 years. It was rapidly scaling, and then I kind of got burnt out as a pandemic, and I was like, I think I'm going to move to Poland, and I ended up moving to Poland. But Kiev was amazing. It's definitely developed me in many ways, and I wouldn't be able to say that if I stayed in America, I would have the same. I think I would be stuck in a different mindset, and I wouldn't have learned a lot as much.
I think what a wonderful experience. So let me pivot over to millennials again. I'm curious. I mean, depending on who you talk to in freight, very different feelings and just opinions about opportunities and concerns in the current freight market right now. So I'm curious from a millennial perspective, like how do millennials, as you understand it, where do they see the opportunities and where do they see the risk right now from a career standpoint in this space right now?
Sure. I think the beautiful thing is that and this goes across to like all generations, and probably no matter what generation you're from or what time you lived in on Earth, if you work hard, there's always going to be opportunities. And I think, people got a little lazy during the pandemic. People started working from home. I was guilty myself. Like my work output wasn't as great during the pandemic when I was working from home. It was just kind of like a way to be like, you're hidden from the office. You're kind of like, okay, like, I don't know, not everyone is like this, but I was speaking for myself, and I think a lot of people kind of got lazy a little bit, and they got used to just having a steady paycheck. And now I think we're a time in a market where the market's doing pretty poorly, and you really have to work hard in order to make as much as you were making, or even make less than you were making. You still got to work harder. There's no such thing as easy money at the moment. For the most part, there's no easy money. So I think the opportunity has to lie in self-development and making sure that you're striving to be the best you can be if you're an employer or have your own company. Like for example, now since I'm an entrepreneur, the paycheck I get or the money that I make is literally dependent on the value that I provide companies. Which is different when you're a salaried employee. You could, potentially not be providing that much value, but still making the regular paycheck. So the opportunities lie in working hard, but also finding something that works for you. I started FreightCaviar, and I have a paycheck from it every month. I live in Poland. We've launched a SaaS application called ShipperCRM.com. So there's a lot of opportunities in this industry. Just if you could make money making freight memes, you can make money doing various things. So if you're not happy with being a freight broker or whatever you're doing in the industry, there's a lot of opportunities out there. So making sure you take advantage of it and being open-minded to it.
I love that. My wife, she always says, like, there are endless ways to make money. Just open up your eyes. There's endless ways.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I appreciate what you just said. And since you brought it up, let's talk about ShipperCRM. So very excited. So tell us what you're cooking up and who benefits from it.
So ShipperCRM is a CRM for freight brokers and trucking companies. And it's also a lead generation tool where you could literally request a contact information from a shipper and receive that in the database. And it's much cheaper than ZoomInfo. What we did essentially was we took a CRM and we took like a lead generation tool like ZoomInfo, but made it a lot cheaper. All your contacts stay private. We have our own sources for our data, but we're building out a source of truth for a shipper database where if you're a freight broker, a trucking company, anyone that wants to work directly with a shipper, you will benefit from it. And I'm not a software engineer, but my co-founder is, and we've been able to get all of our essentially leads coming in from FreightCaviar, which is quite spectacular. Like we don't typically a company if they start a SaaS product, They have to have a marketing budget put in place. They need to have a salesperson hired. Here, we streamline it all to where we've just been promoting it through FreightCaviar, and it's currently it's a beta function, so it's not even a full launch yet. Mm-hmm. But we've been able to get over 100 users within a week. It's a 2-week free trial, so you can go on. You can make an account right now if you go to ShipperCRM.com. Start a 2-week trial, but it's really exciting, and it's wonderful to be able to have the audience that I've built up through the media functionalities of FreightCaviar, and then being able to have all of our leads come through for ShipperCRM through FreightCaviar.
No, I'm sure that's very satisfying, especially in terms of doing it your way, having some fun, not taking yourself too seriously. And here you are, you've leveraged that network to build something brand new. It's pretty inspiring.
It's exciting.
Well, hey, one last question for you. A little bit of a wild card here for you, Paul. So you've been living in Poland for 3 or so years, correct?
Yeah, two and a half now.
Two and a half years. What would you say is the number one destination in Poland? If someone was going to go to Poland and only spend one day, what would you suggest that they experience that you've thought is truly special?
So Poland is a great city. Poland is a great country. Sorry, and there's a few cities that are really amazing. But if I were to just choose one, I would go with Warsaw, the capital. Just because in Warsaw you have the old town. It was fully destroyed during World War II, but it got rebuilt. And then you have the new business downtown area, and I think a lot of people are pleasantly surprised by Warsaw. And from everyone that I've heard that had, non-Polish, foreigners that have come to Warsaw, they love it. And just to add on top of that, I will definitely add Gdańsk, which is a port city on the Baltic. It used to be a German city, so you have a lot of German architecture. And then the third one is Krakow. I was just there yesterday. So, If you're going to go to one city, just go to Warsaw. And then if you have time, go to Gdańsk and Krakow.
Well, I love it. Well, hey, Paul, thanks so much for spending some time with us in the hot seat. Keep inspiring. I love what you're doing. Keep finding new ways to make money, to stay busy, and keep doing what you love. So that's going to do it for us, sir. We'll see you next time.